The galaxy had a word for planets like Earth. They called them places where the ground shook without warning, where fire fell from the sky, where the water itself could kill you, and the creatures hunted each other just to survive another day. Most species in the galactic conquered came from gentle worlds with calm weather and soft sunlight. They had never known hunger. They had never needed to run from anything. Humans were different. Humans came from a world that tried to kill them every single day. And somehow, against all odds, humans had not only survived, they had conquered their planet. Then they reached for the stars. Ambassador stood in the Great Hall of Harmony Prime, the capital station of the Galactic Concord. Around her, delegates from dozens of species filled the massive chamber. Some floated in liquid tanks. Others perched on specialized stands that matched their strange bodies. The air smelled of 100 different atmospheres, carefully mixed so everyone could breathe. Breath slowly. She moved slowly. She kept her voice soft and her eyes down. These were the rules humans followed when they lived among other species. They called them integration protocols. Every human learned them from childhood. Do not move too fast. It scares them. Do not raise your voice. It sounds like a predator's roar to their ears. Do not show your teeth when you smile. They will think you want to eat them. Do not eat meat in public, ever. Had followed these rules for 30 years. She was good at it. She made herself small and quiet and gentle, even though everything in her body wanted to stand tall and speak loud and move with the strength her ancestors had given her. Today was especially hard. The delegate from the Hegemony was speaking. His name was High Minister, and he was tall and thin, with blue skin and 4 arms that moved like water when he talked. They were one of the oldest species in the Concord. They believed this made them better than everyone else. We must discuss the human problem, said. His voice was smooth and cold. 300 years they have been among us. 300 years we have tried to civilize them, and still they remain what they are. Predators, dangerous. Felt her hands tighten. Beside her, Commander shifted his weight. She could feel his anger without looking at him. The humans have followed every rule, said a small delegate from the people. They looked like Earth rabbits, soft and round with large dark eyes. They have been peaceful. They have helped many worlds. Helped laughed. The sound was sharp and cruel. They play at being gentle, but we all know what they truly are. Look at their history, war after war. They killed billions of their own kind. They are monsters wearing masks. Wanted to speak. She wanted to remind them of everything humans had done. When the pale fever swept through the outer colonies, human doctors worked without sleep for months to find a cure. When earthquakes destroyed the human rescue teams dug through rubble with their bare hands to save strangers. When pirates attacked the trade routes, human ships stood guard and asked for nothing in return. But she said nothing. She had learned that speaking only made things worse. The other species did not want to hear about human kindness. They only wanted to talk about human violence. After the meeting, walked through the quiet corridors of the station with beside her. He was younger than her, strong and tall, with dark skin and eyes that burned with feelings he worked hard to hide. 300 years, said quietly. 300 years we have done everything right, and they still look at us like we are animals. I know, said. My grandmother told me stories about the old days, before the conquered. She said humans used to stand tall. We used to be proud of what we were. Now we hide. We pretend. We make ourselves small so they won't be afraid of us. Stopped walking, she looked at carefully. The integration protocols keep us safe, she said. They keep the peace. Do they? Asked. Or do they just make the other species comfortable while they treat us like dirt? Had no answer. She had asked herself the same question many times. That night received a message that changed everything. She was in her quarters, a small room with walls and a single window that looked out at the stars. The message came through on a secure channel, marked urgent. It was from Earth. Read it 3 times. Her hands began to shake. The colony of New Geneva had gone dark. 200,000 people, farmers, scientists, teachers, children. Their last message was a distress call cut off mid-sentence. Then nothing. Complete silence. Rushed to the conquered council. She requested immediate investigation. Ships, rescue teams, anything they could send. The council listened politely, then they said no. New Geneva is a human colony, the council speaker said. He was an ancient creature from a species did not recognize, floating in a tank of purple liquid. Internal human matters are not conquered business. 200,000 people are missing, said. She forgot to keep her voice soft. Several delegates flinched at the sound. Then your people should investigate, the speaker said calmly. We wish you well. Looked around the chamber. She saw the faces of 100 different species. Some looked away. Some looked bored. And in the corner, High Minister was watching her with a small smile on his thin lips. That smile burned itself into his memory. She requested permission to take a ship to New Geneva. The council granted it after 2 days of waiting. 2 days while 200,000 people might be dying. As prepared to leave, she received another message. This one came from her own government on Earth. The message was short. It contained one word that had only read about in history books, a word that had not been spoken in 300 years. Omega sat alone in her quarters for a long time. Outside her window, the stars burned cold and distant. She thought about everything humanity had given up to join the conquered. They had sealed away their weapons. They had closed their military academies. They had taught their children to walk softly and speak gently and never, ever show what they were truly capable of. For 300 years, humans had played by the rules. They had smiled at insults. They had accepted being treated as dangerous beasts. They had worked so hard to prove they could be trusted. And now 200,000 of them had vanished, and the galaxy did not care. Closed her eyes. She remembered a saying her grandfather used to tell her, something from the old days before the conquered. Wolves can learn to live with sheep, he would say, but the sheep should never forget that wolves have teeth. Her ship departed the next morning. As Harmony Prime grew smaller in the viewport, whispered to the stars, "You have no idea what you have done." The ship dropped out of faster-than-light travel and saw New Geneva for the first time. Or what was left of it. The planet hung in space like a wounded thing. Great black scars covered the land where cities used to be. Smoke still rose from the destruction, weeks after whatever had happened here. The oceans looked wrong, darker than they should be, filled with ash and debris. Stood at the viewport and could not speak. Behind her made a sound like an animal in pain. "No," he whispered. "No, no, no." The investigation team landed near what used to be the capital city, had seen pictures of New Geneva before. Green fields, white buildings, children playing in parks, families walking along rivers. Now there was nothing but silence and death. They walked through the ruins for hours. The team included scientists from several conquered species, sent to observe and make a report. They kept their distance from the humans. They took notes on their devices and spoke quietly to each other. Stopped caring about them. She could only look at what surrounded her. Homes burned to the ground. Schools collapsed into rubble. Hospitals torn apart by weapons fire. And everywhere, the signs of people who had tried to run, who had tried to hide, who had tried to protect the ones they loved. Found the shelter first. It was underground, built to protect people from natural disasters. The doors had been melted open from the outside. Inside, they found the bodies of 300 children and the teachers who had died trying to save them. Fell to her knees. She had not cried in 20 years. She cried now. The investigation continued for 3 more days. The team found evidence that told a clear story. This was not an accident. This was not a natural disaster. New Geneva had been attacked. The weapon signatures were unfamiliar at first, but was trained in military history, a subject most humans avoided talking about. He recognized the energy patterns. Yep. The weapons that killed 200,000 humans were weapons. The ships that burned this world were ships. Someone had removed the identification marks, but the technology could not lie. They found one more thing. A data chip, hidden in a sealed container by someone who knew they were going to die but wanted the truth to survive. Played the recording in her ship that night. The other species on the team watched with her. The chip contained the final hours of New Geneva, security cameras, personal devices, everything the colonists had recorded as their world ended. Saw families gathering in emergency shelters. She saw parents telling their children that help was coming, that everything would be okay. She saw a young teacher singing songs to keep the little ones calm while explosions shook the building above them. She saw a father, covered in dust and blood, recording a message for his wife who was off-world that day. "Tell Maria I love her," he said into the camera. "Tell her I'm sorry I couldn't." The recording cut off as fire filled the screen. She saw the mayor of the capital city refusing to evacuate, staying in his office to coordinate rescue efforts, until a beam of light erased the building from existence. She saw humans being humans until the very end, brave, kind, helping each other even when there was no hope left. And then she saw the ships. The recording caught a clear image of the attack fleet in orbit, no markings, but the shape of the vessels was unmistakable. Yep. Presented the evidence to the conquered council 1 week later. She stood in the same great hall where High Minister had called her people monsters. She showed them everything. The weapons signatures, the ship designs, the recordings of 200,000 innocent people being murdered. The council listened, they discussed, they argued. And then they ruled the evidence inconclusive. "The ships bore no identification," the council speaker said. "We cannot prove who attacked New Geneva." "The weapons are technology," shouted. She had stopped caring about keeping her voice soft. "The ships match designs exactly." "Technology can be," High Minister said. He stood at his place in the chamber, his 4 arms folded calmly. "Anyone could have obtained our designs. This could be a trick by the humans themselves to gain sympathy." Stared at him. "You are saying we killed our own people, 200,000 people, children. Have done worse to each other," said. "Your history proves this." 3 other species spoke in support of the Combine, the Outer Worlds Federation, the Unity, all of them old allies of all of them with trade deals and political agreements that depended on staying friendly with the Hegemony. The council voted. The investigation was closed. No action would be taken. Stood alone in the chamber as the delegates left. Her body felt cold. Her mind felt empty. She had spent her whole life believing in the system, believing that if humans were patient, if they were good, if they followed the rules, they would eventually be accepted. Now she understood the truth. The galaxy had never intended to accept them. Humans were useful when they wanted to build hospitals and save lives. But when humans needed help, when humans needed justice, the galaxy looked away. Found her still standing there an hour later. "Earth has called you back," he said quietly. "All human ambassadors are being recalled." Nodded. She felt like she was moving through a dream. "There's something else," said. "Protocol Omega has been activated. Full activation. Every government on Earth has agreed." Looked at him. In his eyes, she saw something she had not seen in a human for 300 years. No more hiding, no more pretending. The wolf was waking up. "What happens now?" asked. "Now we go home," said. "Now we remember who we are." Took one last look at the great hall of the Galactic Concord. For 3 centuries, humanity had stood in this place as guests, as visitors, as barely tolerated outsiders who had to prove themselves again and again. Those days were over. She walked out of the chamber without looking back. She did not say goodbye to anyone. She did not follow the integration protocols. She walked at her natural speed, with her natural stride, and the aliens in her path scrambled to get out of her way. They had never seen a human move like that before. Fast, purposeful, like a predator who had finally spotted prey. On her ship, received one more message before the journey home. It was from the United Earth Council. 3 words that changed everything. Omega confirmed, prepare. Sat in her chair and thought about New Geneva, about the children in the shelter, about the father who never finished his message, about all the humans who had trusted the galaxy to protect them. The galaxy had failed. Now they would remind everyone why that was a mistake. Had been away from Earth for 15 years. When she left, it was a quiet world. Humans walked slowly through clean streets, speaking softly, following the rules that kept them safe among the stars. Children learned to control themselves before they learned to read. The Earth she returned to was different. Her shuttle landed in Geneva, the old city, not the colony that bore its name. As she stepped outside, she heard something she had not heard since childhood. Laughter, real laughter, loud and free and unashamed. People were running in the streets, not jogging carefully, but running, racing each other, their feet pounding against the ground. Children chased each other through parks, screaming and playing rough games that would have horrified any conquered species watching. And everywhere humans were standing tall, looking up instead of down, speaking in their natural voices, deep and loud and full of power. The integration protocols had been suspended. For the first time in 300 years, humans were allowed to be human. An official vehicle took to the United Earth Council building, rode beside her, watching the streets with wonder in his eyes. "I never knew," he said quietly, "I never knew we could be like this." "Nobody alive remembers," said. "Our grandparents' were the last ones to live without the protocols. It feels," search for the word, "it feels like waking up, like we've been asleep our whole lives." Nodded, she felt it too. The weight she had carried since childhood, the constant effort of making herself small and quiet, was gone. She breathed deeper than she ever had before. Her heartbeat felt stronger. The council building was full of people moving with purpose. Saw military uniforms she had only seen in history books. Officers walked through the halls with confidence and power. Nobody looked down. Nobody apologized for existing. The council chamber itself held the leaders of every human nation. They had not all been in the same room for over a century. Now they sat together, united by grief and anger and something else. Something that had been buried so deep that most humans had forgotten it existed. Admiral stood at the center of the room. She was 90 years old, small and thin, with white hair pulled back from a face lined with age. But her eyes were sharp and bright, and when she spoke, the room fell silent. "Welcome home," Ambassador said. "Thank you for your service to humanity. Your work is done. Now ours begins." Took her seat beside. She listened as the Admiral explained. 3 centuries ago, when humanity joined the Galactic Concord, they made a choice. They could have entered the galaxy as warriors. Their ships were powerful. Their weapons were advanced. Their soldiers were trained in 10,000 years of warfare, hardened by conflicts that would have destroyed any other species. But humanity chose peace. They wanted to be accepted, not feared. They believed that if they showed kindness, kindness would be returned. So they sealed away their weapons. They closed their military academies. They taught their children to hide what they really were. They hoped that one day the galaxy would see them as friends instead of monsters. That day never came. "We gave them 300 years of peace," Admiral said. "We built hospitals on their worlds. We saved their people from plagues and disasters. We asked for nothing in return but respect." She paused. Her old hands gripped the edge of her podium. "They answered by murdering 200,000 of our children, and then they told us to be quiet about it." The room was silent, felt tears on her face. She was not ashamed of them. Protocol Omega is now fully active, continued. The Luna vaults are being opened as we speak. For 300 years we preserved everything. The ships, the weapons, the training programs, the knowledge of war that took our species 10,000 years to learn. Images appeared on the screens around the room. Massive underground hangars filled with ships that gleamed like they had been built yesterday. Weapons systems that the conquered had never seen. Battle armor designed for creatures that could survive on a. We told them we had 50 patrol ships, said. We have 1,000 warships, hidden in the dark, waiting for the day we prayed would never come. Stared at the images. She had known, in theory, that Protocol Omega existed. Every human knew, but seeing it made it real. They believe they know what humans are capable of, said. They have read our history. They think they understand war. She smiled. It was not a nice smile, it showed teeth. They have no idea. They have never faced a species in true combat. They have never fought an enemy that evolved to hunt, to adapt, to survive anything the universe could throw at us. They think we're dangerous because we're strong. Leaned forward. We're dangerous because we refuse to die. Because every human carries the survival instincts of 1,000,000 years of ancestors who faced extinction and won. Because when you push us, we push back harder. And we never, ever stop. The training began that week. Across Earth and its colonies, humans relearned the old ways. Not just fighting, though there was plenty of that. They learned how to move without the integration protocols limiting them. How to use their voices to communicate across battlefields. How to trust their instincts instead of suppressing them. Trained alongside and thousands of others. She learned things about her own body she had never known. How fast she could really run when nothing held her back. How strong she was when she stopped trying to be gentle. How her eyes could track movement in darkness, a gift from ancestors who hunted at night. She learned that the integration protocols were not about politeness. They were about hiding capabilities. Humans had spent 3 centuries pretending to be slower, weaker, and less aware than they really were. Now the masks came off. They had studied human history. They knew about human wars, human weapons, human cruelty, but they had only seen humans fighting each other. They had never seen what happened when humans united against a common enemy. The fleet gathered in the shadow of the moon, 1,000 ships that had waited in silence for 300 years, crews trained in combat doctrines refined over, soldiers who were finally allowed to be what nature made them. Admiral addressed them before departure. Her voice carried across every ship, every speaker, every comm system. For 300 years, we chose peace. We wanted to believe the galaxy could accept us. We wanted to prove that could be kind. Her voice hardened. They killed our children. They laughed at our grief. They told us to stay quiet and accept our place. Stood on the bridge of her assigned ship, the carrier unconquered. Around her, the crew prepared for war. Their faces were calm. Their movements were certain. They had been waiting their whole lives for this moment, even if they did not know it. Today, Admiral said, we stopped playing nice. The fleet moved toward space like a river of steel and fire, and the galaxy, which had long forgotten why it should fear, was about to remember. They saw them coming. Their long-range sensors detected the human fleet 3 days before it reached their border. High Minister received the report in his private chambers and laughed out loud. 1,000 ships, he said to his advisors. They truly believe this is enough. The Hegemony had ruled their sector of space for 2,000 years. Their fleet numbered 15,000 warships. Their soldiers had fought in a dozen wars against lesser species and won every time. They were the greatest military power in the galaxy. And they knew everything about humans. They had studied human history, human tactics, human limitations. Their computers held 300 years of data on how humans moved, how fast they reacted, how their ships performed. Mobilize 5,000 vessels, commanded. Meet them at the border, destroy them completely, leave nothing behind. His advisors hesitated. Only 5,000, High Minister, against. Smiled with cold confidence. 5,000 is already excessive. I simply want this to end quickly. The two fleets met in the empty space between stars. They arranged their ships in the standard formation that had won them every battle for 2,000 years. Perfect lines, perfect spacing, perfect discipline. The human ships approached in no formation at all. They moved in scattered groups, changing direction constantly, their patterns impossible to predict. Admiral watched from his command ship. What are they doing? This is chaos. They have no strategy. His tactical officer shook his head in confusion. I cannot analyze their movements, High Minister. Nothing matches their historical patterns. Nothing matches anything in our database. It doesn't matter, said. Open fire. 5,000 ships fired as one. A wave of energy that could crack a planet filled the space where the human fleet should have been. The humans were no longer there. They had moved, all of them. In the split second between the weapons firing and the beams reaching their targets, 1,000 human ships had changed position. They scattered like drops of water, flowing around the attack and appearing in places no computer had predicted. And then they fired back. The Battle of Prime lasted 4 hours. It felt like 4 days of horror. Their weapons could not hit the human ships. The humans moved in ways that should have been impossible. They turned and spun and dove at speeds that would have killed any other species from the pressure alone. But humans came from a world with heavy gravity. Their bodies were built to survive forces that would crush other races. The human pilots flew like predators hunting prey. They darted between formations, appearing and disappearing, striking from angles that no one expected. When one ship tried to target a human vessel, 3 others would attack from behind. And then the boarding parties came. Human Marines breached the outer hulls of command ships. They did not use explosives. They did not need to. They cut through the metal with tools, then ripped the weakened sections apart with their bare hands. They had never seen this before. They had fought many species. All of them used weapons. All of them kept their distance. None of them charged straight into enemy ships to fight face to face. Humans did. The Marines moved through the ships like ghosts of death. They did not use guns inside the vessels. The close quarters meant nothing to them. They were apex predators from a world where everything learned to fight with teeth and claws and hands. Their ancestors had killed animals 10 times their size with nothing but sharpened sticks. Soldiers fled before them. Some fought back and died. Some surrendered and were taken prisoner. Many simply collapsed from terror when they saw human eyes in the darkness. Predator eyes. Eyes that did not look away. Within 2 hours, the fleet was broken. Ships drifted without power. Commanders screamed for reinforcements that would never arrive. The perfect formation had become a field of wreckage and fear. On the bridge of his command ship, High Minister watched his empire's military die. His hands shook. His confidence had turned to ash. This is impossible, he whispered. They are, but they are not soldiers. They gave up war. They sealed their weapons. They became peaceful. His tactical officer stared at the screens with empty eyes. They were never peaceful, High Minister. They were waiting. While the fleet battle raged, a small human team had reached Prime itself. 12 people, special forces, the best of the best. They moved across the planet's surface like shadows. The security systems never detected them. The defenses designed to stop armies did not know how to stop hunters who moved alone in the darkness. Within 72 hours, the team had taken control of the planetary defense grid. They did not destroy it. They simply made it theirs. The technology that had taken the centuries to develop, humans learned to use in 3 days. High Minister received a communication from the human fleet. Admiral's face appeared on his screen. Your fleet is destroyed, she said calmly. Your planet's defenses belong to us. Your people are not harmed. We have not attacked any civilian target. We are not like you. Try to speak with dignity. What are your terms for surrender? His expression did not change. You misunderstand. We are not offering you surrender. You do not deserve surrender. You murdered 200,000 innocent people and called it politics. Then what do you want? The truth. The interrogation was broadcast to every world in the galaxy. Every species watched as leaders confessed everything. They had destroyed New Geneva because humans were becoming too respected. Other species were starting to admire human kindness, human courage, human generosity. They saw their influence weakening. They decided to remind the galaxy that humans were dangerous monsters who could never be trusted. They thought killing 200,000 people would make the galaxy fear humans again. They were right, but not in the way they expected. The confession did not come through torture. The humans asked questions. They stood close. They looked thee in the eyes without blinking. They waited in silence. Most species could not endure being watched by a predator. Something deep in their minds broke when human eyes focused on them without looking away. The talk to make it stop. They confessed everything to escape those patient, hunting eyes. When the broadcast ended, Admiral addressed the galaxy one final time. 300 years ago, humanity chose peace. We wanted to be part of your civilization. We wanted to be friends. We gave you our kindness, our help, our trust. Her voice was calm and steady. You answered with murder. Your conquered answered with silence. You thought we were monsters pretending to be gentle. You were wrong. She paused. We were gentle beings who remembered how to be monsters. There is a difference, and now you understand what that difference means. The broadcast ended. Across the galaxy, species who had laughed at humanity fell silent. Species who had allied with them began to panic. Species who had voted to close the investigation into New Geneva realized what they had done. They had stopped playing nice, and the galaxy would never be the same. 50 years later, a teacher stood before a classroom of young students. They came from a dozen different species. Some floated in small tanks of liquid. Some perched on special chairs that matched their bodies. One small figure sat in the back row, blue skin and 4 thin arms marking her as. The classroom was on Harmony Prime, the capital of the new Galactic Concord. On the wall behind the teacher hung a simple frame. Inside was a child's drawing, old and faded, showing a family holding hands under a yellow sun. Today, the teacher said, we will learn about the reckoning. This is required teaching for all students in the Concord. Can anyone tell me why? A young raised one tentacle. Because we must never forget what happened. That is correct. The teacher touched a button and images appeared in the air. Images of a beautiful green world, then the same world covered in fire and ash. This was New Geneva, a human colony, home to 200,000 people. The students watched in silence. They had all seen these images before, on news broadcasts, in history lessons, in the mandatory remembrance ceremonies held every year across the galaxy. But seeing them again always brought the same feeling of heavy sadness. The Hegemony destroyed this world, the teacher continued. They killed every person who lived there, men and women, old and young, children in their schools. In the back row, the girl lowered her eyes. Her people had scattered across the galaxy after the reckoning. They were refugees now, welcomed nowhere, trusted by no one. The Hegemony was gone. It had not been destroyed by human weapons. It had been abandoned by everyone else. When the galaxy learned the truth about New Geneva, every species that had traded with them stopped trading. Every alliance was broken. Every door was closed. They had thought they were powerful, but their power came from others. When the others left, there was nothing remaining. After New Geneva, the teacher said, the humans came for justice, not revenge, justice. They destroyed the military, but they did not kill civilians. They did not bomb cities. They did not do to the what was done to them. Another student spoke up. Why not? They killed their children. The teacher was quiet for a moment. That question has been debated for 50 years. The human answer has always been the same. They said they refused to become what they thought they were. The images changed again. Now they showed the three species that had allied with the Combine, the Outer Worlds Federation, the Unity. All three had spoken in defense of the when the conquered refused to investigate New Geneva. The humans did not attack these species either, the teacher said. They did something different. They released information, every secret deal, every hidden crime, every lie these governments had told their own people for centuries. The humans had been watching. They had been collecting evidence. And when the time came, they simply showed everyone the truth. The governments of all three species had collapsed within months, not because of human weapons, but because their own citizens had turned against them. The truth was more devastating than any bomb. This is why, the teacher said slowly, we teach every child in the galaxy about the reckoning, not because humans are dangerous. We always knew they were dangerous. Every species is dangerous. The teacher moved to the wall where the child's drawing hung. We teach this because for 300 years, humans chose to be kind. They walked slowly so we would not be afraid. They spoke softly so our ears would not hurt. They ate strange food because watching them eat meat made us uncomfortable. The teacher touched the frame gently. They built hospitals on our worlds. They came running when disasters struck. They held our hands when we were afraid. They did everything right for 300 years, and we repaid them by murdering their children and telling them to be quiet. The classroom was absolutely silent. Even the smallest students understood the weight of these words. The lesson of the reckoning is not about human power. It is about what happens when kindness is answered with cruelty. It is about the price of betraying trust. It is about remembering that the beings who choose to be gentle are often the ones you should fear most if you force them to stop. A soft chime announced the end of the lesson. Students began to gather their things, but the teacher had one more thing to say. Before you go, I want you to know something about the drawing on the wall. It was made by a 7-year-old girl named. She drew it in school on New Geneva 3 days before the attack. It was found in the ruins of her classroom. The students looked at the simple picture: a family, a son, a home. Wanted to be an artist when she grew up. She loved animals and stars and making people smile. She never hurt anyone. She was 7 years old and she was killed because powerful people decided her species was too respected. The teacher looked at each student in turn. When you look at a human, I want you to remember. I want you to remember that humans are not our enemies. They never wanted to be. They wanted to be our friends so badly that they changed everything about themselves to make us comfortable. The students filed out slowly. The girl stayed behind. She approached the teacher with tears in her large, dark eyes. I am sorry, she whispered, for what my people did. I was not born yet, but I am still sorry. The teacher looked at her with kindness. Child, you carry no blame for crimes committed before you existed. The humans know this. They have never punished your generation for what your grandparents did. But everyone else does, the girl said. Everyone looks at me and sees a monster. The teacher was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke softly. Do you know the first thing humans did after the reckoning ended? They sent doctors to help refugees. They sent food to children who had nothing. They could have let your people starve. No one would have blamed them, but they chose to help anyway. The girl looked up. Why? Because, the teacher said, they wanted to prove that even after everything, they were still who they chose to be: kind, generous, forgiving. The reckoning was not about becoming monsters. It was about reminding the galaxy that they had been monsters once and chose to be better. That evening, the yearly memorial ceremony took place across every world in the Conquered. For 1 minute, the entire galaxy fell silent. No one spoke, no ships moved, no machines made noise. It was a minute to remember New Geneva. A minute to remember 200,000 people who died because the galaxy forgot that kindness is a choice, and choices can be taken back. On Earth, now very old, stood at the memorial built where the old Geneva used to meet New Geneva's first settlers. Her hair was white, her body was frail, but her eyes were still sharp. Beside her stood leaders from 100 species who had come to pay respects. They came every year now, not because they had to, because they wanted to, because the galaxy had changed. "The hardest thing we ever did," said to a young reporter, "was not the reckoning. It was going back to being kind afterward, choosing gentleness again when we had every reason to stay angry forever." "Do you regret it?" the reporter asked, "showing the galaxy what you could do?" Thought about the question for a long time. She thought about who had died 10 years ago, finally at peace. She thought about Admiral, who had passed away knowing humanity was respected at last. She thought about the children of New Geneva who would never grow up. "I regret that it was necessary," she finally said, "but I do not regret that the galaxy finally understands." "Understands what?" Smiled. It was a real smile with teeth showing, the kind humans had hidden for 300 years. "That we have two hands, one we offer in friendship, the other remembers New Geneva." She looked up at the stars. "The galaxy only ever sees the first hand, as long as they deserve to." And so the legend lived on, taught in every school, remembered on every world. A story about kindness and cruelty, about trust and betrayal, about gentle beings who were forced to remember what they truly were. The day they stopped playing nice. A legend every species would remember forever.